to the plenary session on management, social sciences, and humanities of the 16th International Research Conference of KDU. The plenary session is under the theme of research in management, social sciences, and humanities towards resilience and sustainability in a digitalized era.
International research conferences of this caliber open windows of knowledge sharing not only for research scholars and scientists, but also for practitioners, policymakers, experts, stakeholders, and university students. So, ladies and gentlemen, we proudly present to you the plenary session on management, social sciences, and humanities of the 16th International Research Conference of KDU.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to have five esteemed panelists joining with us today. As discussants of the plenary session, they would be presenting their thoughts, ideas, findings, and opinions on the theme of research in management, social sciences, and humanities towards resilience and sustainability in a digitalized era. Thus, we certainly believe that their deliberations will result in an intellectual academic dialogue.
So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let us commence the proceedings of the day. It is my privilege to invite Mr. Kitsiri Amaratunga, the Dean, Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities, to introduce the chair of the plenary session. Over to you, sir.
Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure for me to introduce the chair for this plenary session of the Management, Social Sciences and Humanities Faculty Plenary Session. We have a very distinguished academic in the form of Professor Siri Hettige to chair this plenary session today. So, Professor Siri Hettige is an Emeritus Professor of Sociology at the University of Colombo and an Adjunct Professor at RMIT University, Melbourne, Australia. Professor Siri Hettige has specialized in sociology, and he earned his first degree in sociology from the University of Colombo and a B.Phil in sociology as well from University of Colombo. Then he obtained his PhD in sociology at Monash University, Australia. He was a Fulbright senior scholar at the University of Pennsylvania in USA. He is the chairman of the steering committee on social innovations at the National Science Foundation, Sri Lanka. Professor Hettige held the position of professor and head of department of sociology, dean faculty of arts at the University of Colombo. He has also held visiting academic appointments at a number of universities in countries such as the USA, Australia, Germany, UK, Finland, and Switzerland. He has held he was the founding chair of Sri Lanka Studies at the South Asia Institute, Heidelberg University, Germany, from 2016 to 17. He has also been active in many professional and academic associations, both nationally and internationally, regularly participating in their activities. Professor Hettige has published voluminously, and he has been a great scholar for us in Sri Lanka in the field of sociology. So without much ado, I would like to welcome Professor Hettige to this plenary session. And sir, let me invite you to commence the session today. Thank you.
getting around. Mobility is today. Um, Therefore, I think that you have been waiting here for a little while to commence this very important program. I looked at the theme, and I think that theme is somehow very timely. There are two words that really come to anybody's mind these days. One is, of course, sustainability, because we are in the era where we are all concerned about sustainable development. We have come a long way in the area of development, not just in Sri Lanka, but in the rest of the world. And we have come to a point where we have realized the need to change the way we have been managing development in each one of our countries. But on the other hand, it was in 1972 that there was a major publication that came out from the Club of Rome, and the title was very instructive, Limits to Growth. This was in 1972. That was when I was when I was an undergraduate in University of Colombo, and I came across that publication a little later when I was sitting in the class room where the lecturer was talking about development trajectories across the world as part of our sociology of development course. But then, after more than 50 years, we know how we manage within limits to growth. I don't want to go into great detail, but on the other hand, we know we are today faced with a massive problem of climate change. And the events that are happening across the world, very major disasters as we speak, indicate to you, to all of us, that we are really in a situation where we just cannot be complacent anymore. And I don't want to take too much of your time, but to say that this term that is used here, sustainability, is so critical. And I'm familiar with the development trajectory in this country over the last 50 years. And I know for a fact that it has not been sustainable development that has taken place in this country to this day. Therefore, we have a major responsibility in our hands to figure out how to bring about change in the way that we manage economic and social affairs. And of course, resilience is so critical. Not just for us as individuals, because we want to be resilient, but for all societies. Societies have to be resilient. Otherwise, people are in trouble. So again, our experience has not been very positive, and therefore these two terms that appear in your theme can be considered as very critical. And of course, here you are going to look at it from a broad perspective. And doing justice to this particular theme is not easy. Certainly, social sciences and humanities, from which I come, are very critical. And there we have ideas being generated. But then we are living in a world where ideas are not so important as interests. Ideas are not so important as interests. But on the other hand, we know that we have to take ideas seriously. Ideas emanating from all fields of study, in particular, social sciences and humanities. I do not want to go on and on, because here the idea is not for me to talk, but on the other hand, since I come from an academic background, I can't just be a timekeeper. Therefore, I felt that I should express, few points here, just to begin with. And of course, we have four very eminent speakers lined up for you, coming from the very different backgrounds. And, I think they will have half an hour each to make their presentation, and then we will probably have a bit of time towards the end to reflect on what they presented and have an open discussion. I will go by the list as I have here, and I will invite the speakers. As I already mentioned, we have four speakers, and they come from very different backgrounds. And I don't want to really go too much into their backgrounds and so on and so forth, because we have lost quite a bit of time already. And so let me call upon the first speaker, Ravi Dissanayake, and he's coming from the University of Kelaniya Department of Marketing Management. And he's going to talk about digitization through holistic readiness for business success. And to be followed by Professor Nihal, Perera, whom I know for quite some time through our interactions over the last few years. Here he's going to talk about something that can, create some interest in the minds of all of you. He's going to talk about just read out the theme, but there's something more to it behind, more to it than just the theme that is mentioned here. Stuck in change, moving beyond colonial thinking. And he comes from urban planning background, and he's from University of Ball State University, USA. And then we have our colleagues on this side, Dr. Lesley Dick, coming from language teaching background, English language teaching background, ELT Project Manager from the British Council, Sri Lanka. And I have been very much connected to the British Council Library as an undergraduate, and also even now, I have a tendency to walk to the British Council Library, where I have read so much over the last 50 years, I should say. Okay, then we move on to the last speaker, Mr. Kamal Geeganage. He's from the private sector, coming from one of the leading manufacturing plants that we have produce biscuits, which we have been consuming as children and even now. That is important, Ceylon Biscuit Limited. And he's going to talk about organizational challenges in digital transformation and the role of social science and humanities to make it a better living from industry perspective. I don't want to really make any more comments. Thank you very much for being patient, and let's begin with the program. And I invite Professor Ravi Dissanayake to make his presentation.
Right. Very good evening, everyone. And first of all, let me congrats from the University of Kelaniya, where I do come from, to this same university for the 16th time organizing this knowledge forum, and the chair and all the colleagues, academics, and future of Sri Lanka, the young learners. In fact, I was invited when I was invited to talk about this one. Even though I do come from hardcore academic background, let me introduce myself. Fully into academic background. It's from University of Kelaniya. My area is marketing and strategy, and with the all given permission and the privilege, I'm consultant to different companies in Sri Lanka. So my thought will be a blend of book and practice. Mr. Geeganage, we had a quick chat about this practice and the book connection. We all talk about digitalization. That's going to be the core of this conference, where we always talk about not the output, the outcome is sustainability. Without any PowerPoint slide, which we are used to have it, no need PowerPoints, power and points are our dialogues. And what I want to highlight is these are some academic research inputs and the analyzed outcomes plus industry experiences about digitalization and digital transformation. When you talk about digitalization, you have enough evidence to believe it's completely a techno process. Where we talk about even the conference theme, the sustainability doesn't come out through the digitization. It is digitalization. In between these two, I propose my speech on ecosystem approach, or what do you call holistic approach. When I say holistic for anything that covers 360-degree approach, where we need to focus our future research on this. We have enough practices, evidences, software, hardware, even sometimes in between the manware to talk about digitization, which is one of the fundamentals of sustainability-driven digitalization process. But where the missing point is, today we are in the era, especially Professor Janardhan is also here from my university. Whereas academics, we have been challenged by AI today, artificial intelligence. So it has given a lot of opportunities for students like you to use the artificial intelligence, but mind you, please, because our chair comes from the complete sociological background, still, HI, human intelligence is powerful. Human intelligence is powerful, for sure. So then, where the bridging factor comes between digitization and digitalization, sorry. The bridging factor is called digital readiness of the organization. Within Notion, let me open my thoughts on this digital transformation as the bridging factor between digitalization and digitization. We'll have a quick move on this. When we look at organizations today, when even SMEs want to invest on digitalization process, where even today we can see small kitchen is a part of the global business model. We have been archived in all aspects. Even small salon can be a part of the international business model today. Maybe you are a small scale entrepreneur in confection industry, maybe part of the CBL for one day. You can connect into international supply chain. But it is not digitization. This is where we as academics, we have a responsibility to make that seed grounded well and educate the practitioners how and why digitalization should be strongly backed by the human factor. This is what the main point I want to highlight. If you look at international case studies, successful digital transformation companies, they have published 7 factors, 8 factors, no need to talk about the numbers. But for sure, first 80 factors, 80% of factors are not anything related to technology. Starting from the change management, backed by the notion called shared values. Number 3, people leadership. So these 3 are major concerns of today's digital transformation challenge. Whereas, including our country, our enterprises, corporate sector people, this is how you have to think digitalization as a strategic process. Let me take one quick example. With all this challenging time we have had, we had to introduce QR code. Sri Lanka as a country, we have 93% of literacy rate, but digital literacy not as at that of the significant level. However, even illiterate people in Sri Lanka, maybe very poor farmers, they were managed to download and a cultured the QR code system for their smartphone. So then we have a question in Sri Lanka, who is not digitally ready, people or companies? Our people are ready. I'm coming from the hardcore marketing background. I said 3 factors of digital transformation. The fourth very important factor is digital transformation should be established, should be planned with the number 4 called customer value creation. Today, hardcore IT people produce so much of digitization, but they assume it is digital transformation, which is not. Your digitization sometimes kind of ill factor for the own employees. In your company, when you do the digital transformation, what I said was it should be people factor driven approach. Don't even believe what I say, but you think later, not now. In a company, any given time, there are 3 generations in one workforce. Your corporate level, C-suite level people are in the edge of Gen X, Generation X. The middle managers, Generation Y, and the frontiers, Gen Z. And no more, very soon you are going to satisfy the Gen Z customers. 3 generations, 1 mission of the company. So without blending all these 3 generations thought process into one forum, you cannot develop digitally transformed business. If someone says it is yes, of course you can do. It's called digitization, not digital transformation. So digital transformation should be always a techno-social system. Where you missing the 4th factor, what I said was customer value creation. That's what I mentioned in my title too. Digital transformation should connect with the business model, not with the IT department or maybe website or maybe your online revenue model. These are very functional thinking approach. If you really go with the strategic thinking approach, the digital transformation should connect with your business model. In your business model, simple thing, there are 2 parts where you never can forget. One is your customer. If you don't know how your digital transformation motivate customers to deal more with your organization, there is no any revenue generation through your digital transformation. That's why sometimes, very sorry to say that, typical accountants believe digital transformation is a cost. It is an investment. Even though they are blocked with all the accounting principles of credit, debits, and P&L stuff, your mindset, you need to get ready when you are in the board meetings to consider what you spend on digital transformation as an investment. So investment should not be limited to machines. First, invest on people readiness. That's my number 4. Don't worry, I stop with number 4th factor. Number 5th, change management. If you don't know how to make your organization change, for them to absorb digitally able work environment as a part of the quality of life. In a workplace, we have something called quality of life. There was a time people work for a lunch packet. There was a time people work for bonus. Today, people do work for quality of life. So digitally transformed organization provides this important thing called quality of life. Have you ever thought, even though we say the second best home in the world is our working place, actually speaking, our most important hours, important days are occupied in your workplace. Morning to evening, our fresh hours, we are not in our homes. We are in workplace. So your employer, without your understanding, almost exploited your most precise hours. So your employer has the responsibility, before you talk about digitalization, make sure your company, your workplace, digitally able to provide this quality of life for the employees. That's called change management. If you can do these 5, you can see, I didn't talk anything about technology. I always talked about people approach. Maybe number 6, number 7, number 8, it's up to you. You feel with your investment on computers, machines, software, hardware, whatever. That's called digitization. So where we went wrong in our corporate dialogue and the corporate planning strategies, we first emphasize on digitization as the number 1 factor, which is wrong. The one who initiated digitization, it means make things technically able, make things automated. The one who started that project may be retired, maybe brain drain for sure. So then what happens to your system? All system dead. Your people are not ready to make it autopilot. This is called ecosystem approach. Everyone loves for technology. Everyone will take technology as a part of the life. Not because of rules, but because of the passion. If you don't know how to make your people, your employees, to absorb technology as a passion in them, it doesn't work for digitally transformed organization, and the word called sustainability will be limited to your nice reports. Nothing will happen. So digital transformation should talk, not the output. It should talk about outcomes, the behavioral change of people. So to do that, let me get my last 3-4 minutes. To do that, we have a system approach to go. It has 3 passages. Sometimes, even though you invest on people change, their knowledge, attitudes, and skill, or especially upskilling part, you need to have sometimes to make this digitally transformed organization to go on with the rules. Maybe 1 year or few years. Rules will support it. So after that, the rule becomes a practice, right? Rule becomes a practice. No need to see the boards not to do or whatever restrictions. It becomes a practice. So now your digital transformation, like 70% done. The 100% digitally transformed companies, you will observe something called culture. Rules into practice, practice into culture. So where that culture happens in your organization, then you can absolutely endorse your organization as digitally transformed organization. It's people-driven, not the machine-driven. So my final 2 minutes, and all my academics and the learners, when you think about sustainability per se, sustainability happens not only with the quantified or measured results. It has many things related to qualitative aspects. Therefore, in digital transformation, if you are going to develop KPI, key performance indicators, please consider these qualitative aspects into your report. Employee engagement with the digital system is a qualitative thing. But as I really noticed that sectorial development, sector-wise, you need to have customized KPI set to evaluate how far people are in the real passion of digitally able work environment. That has to be there. Because even Peter Drucker once said, what gets measured, get managed. So with this note, I want to wind up my little speak on this. Digital transformation is not machine-driven approach. It's completely human-driven approach. You need to think customized approach for your organization. Please make sure when the next meeting to be held in organization talk about digitalization, take it as investment. Thank you very much.
Take up question afterwards, after all the 4 presentations have been made. I hope the speakers would agree with me, because if we start, asking questions and making comments and so on and so forth, we might not be able to really manage the time, limited time available to us. So let me move on to our next speaker, Professor Nihal Perera. He's going to he has changed his theme. I read earlier something little different. Stuck in change, moving beyond colonial thinking. Professor Nihal Perera. Thank you.
I think we've been talking about a whole number of things, but if I may start by saying, first of all, thank you very much for having me here, especially the Dean. If I may start by saying, just to say that we live in a changing world, I think it's a huge understatement. We may not even know how much it's changing underneath us. The hegemon is gone, the United States. New one might appear. We don't even know what that one is going to, how that one is going to order the world, right? Or that one or couple. The whole capitalism might be gone, and maybe it'll give way to a new mode of production. We don't know what that is, right? And the whole domination of the European civilization may be gone, right? That's another possibility right now. And then another possibility, which is not social, is the whole world would be kind of like subject to climate change, and who knows, the whole thing might explode. We don't even know. I don't think the scientists know enough to kind of like say, because some things are changing so rapidly. This summer it was extremely hot in the United States, unprecedented. So, so I'm interested in, I can't think of doomsday, like scenarios. So I'm interested in understanding how can we contribute if the world is changing. How can we contribute to this changing world? How can we make it a little better, right? For that, we need to understand the kind of impediments we have and the resources we have, right? So I'm just going to focus on one big impediment, that is colonialism, right? We think it's gone. Let me map out a little bit here. Why I'm focusing on colonialism is actually the biggest impact of colonialism is epistemic, the way we think, right? And if you take that, it's not gone. Right? When we think, how we make a sense of the world, these are all crucial for the future. The colonials not only created Ceylon, but also made the Ceylonese adopt their worldviews. That's the issue. And I'm circulating my first book, which is translated to Sinhala very recently here. This is a much greater impact than the one caused by the gun, by the Portuguese, or by the South Asian invaders. It is mental, and the Sri Lankans are still deeply colonized, deeply colonized. So let me elaborate this brief thing I said in probably 10 points, the colonial impact. Number one, Colombo was created by, created from outside, not from inside. this evolution story, Pariname, is absolute nonsense. Because Colombo was created as a part of a network of cities that was developed by the Portuguese in the Indian Ocean, which they subjugated. So the network of cities are around that. All the images are there in that book. And Colombo was one of them. So it never evolved from here. And all the institutions in Colombo were also very different than Kandy or Anuradhapura, right? Number two, Ceylon was produced from Colombo, right? Let me first go to the territory. Number two, the territory we call Ceylon, Sri Lanka today, was an outcome of European wars. In 1796, that was the time that we say it was done. The British and the Dutch came to an agreement called the Peace of the Amiens, and had the Dutch won the war, this country would have been a part of Indonesia, which is Dutch East Indies, right? And people can sort of like claim our history, but that's not how it was managed. And then it was captured by the British forces in Madras, and all those forces were put together and created British India. However, the British Crown decides in 1802 to make it a separate Crown colony, right? That's how Ceylon becomes a separate country. It has nothing to do with any history beyond that, right? So, and they actually transformed that into a European type with a homogeneous territory. It's not like in Kandy where the power is in Kandy, and when you go to Uva, the power reduces. No, it's homogeneous, and there is a boundary, right? It's a very different place that they created. So this has nothing to do with anything before the colonials, right? Number three, Colombo did not evolve from Ceylon, as I said, but Ceylon was produced from Colombo. So the British kind of like separated Ceylon into 5 provinces and districts. Districts were for revenue, provinces for administration, and it was organized through the road network, which is actually a structure. So it was structured and subjugated to Colombo, right? So there was no getting out of this. This is why Sri Lanka, after the end of colonialism, nothing has really changed in regard to the territorial structures, the communication structure. Not even a new railway line, except to Madamulna, wherever the one that was put, right? So, so it was organized around this communication infrastructure, and then actually the new communication, like the railways, and then maybe the internet. I mean, that all goes through this, right? So this structure is not even touched. I don't think any of the governments that dealt with it actually really paid attention to this. Number 4, Ceylon was incorporated into the European world economy, right? This is different than the traditional Marxist approach that I'm talking about. The capitalists, the market, the means of production, which is land, everything was created by the colonial government. Everything was created. And it's all, I've actually argued, the details are there if you want. That's why I'm circulating this book here. Right. So it transformed the society into an economy, one based on imports and exports. Self-sufficiency, which used to be at village level, was gone. Now it's at the empire level. Now we don't have to worry about rice, because rice can come from Burma, right? So this is the fallacy when Ceylon becomes independent, that we are talking about self-sufficiency. That's all gone during the British time. Number 5, if it was subjugated territorially, economically, the bigger one is epistemic, right? So they were developing a knowledge system. The knowledge system of the world is so different. Maybe they borrowed knowledge from India, Arabic countries, China, but they were all restructured in a very different way. We understand the world, now it's a globe, but we have longitudes and latitudes, and it is pretty much like like a grid, pretty much like a grid, right? We can know the coordinates of any place even before we go there. So this whole idea is to kind of like, we have total, they have the total control of the land. The geography is under them. Similarly, the plant world plants were categorized and classified. This was done through the botanical garden system, of which the key was the Kew Gardens, and there were others like in Perera and Haggala and Gampa and so on. So this is how they move plants from place to place and so on, using a particular classification which we call science, right? And then people go to say Perera Gardens to learn about plants. What plants? It's the European classification of plants, right? And then, of course, the Ceylonese people or Sinhalese or other people had some knowledge. They knew how to separate a Garandia from Polanga, right? But this is not that. This is not that. This is a very different system of understanding that's taken in, right? And how is this knowledge? How can this knowledge become more truthful more than the others? It's because Edward Said has argued that it's because of the positional superiority. Now, the powerful, like when we go to school, when the teacher says something to us, we believe, we trust, right? So this is a powerful agency saying this is the truth, right? Now, that's not it. When the Ceylonese people did not use pesticides, they were put in jail, right? So they also used power. So now all of a sudden, it's changing, right? So number 6, cities and the colony are European products. Europe created these, but they're not European. So a lot of people learn what happens in Europe. I mean, even in regard to digitals and various other things, sustainability and whatever. But that doesn't work here because it's a different place. It's a different place. There's a different structure. Because if for that to work, each country should be independent. There are structural connections through these things. So we need to figure out what the structural connections are. People have talked about the core, periphery, like various other things, metropole, colony, and so on, right? So I'll give you an example. So when you read when you study urbanization, so one of the things they said is kind of like, oh, in this third world or the post colony, urbanization is crappy. Why? Urbanization happens without industrialization, because urbanization should happen with industrialization. Now, who says this? People of the countries where this particular thing happened, right? And that cannot happen in countries where plantations were created as part of the economy, not industries, right? So how could this happen? So we don't even have a knowledge of how to understand these things, right? Because we read books that are absolutely irrelevant to this place, right? And then, of course, there's a concept called primate cities. That means the largest cities, so large than other cities, there's no system. Now, if you go to Bangkok, it's like half the population of Thailand is in Bangkok. Yangon is the same. Now, can't talk about Colombo because the classification of municipalities and so on, it's a little fishy here. So let me not talk about that. So this idea of what is Ceylon, who are Sinhalese, who are Tamils, this is all now codified and organized in the museum, right? Through archaeology and so on. Now, it's very interesting. It's a British building with a British governor in front, and then inside is the story of the locals, actually the dead locals, right? And people from Jaffna, from Gaul, from Batticalow go to the museum to learn about our heritage. I mean, who's giving this heritage to us now, right? It's a very, very interesting thing to kind of think about. Where does this come from? I mean, even the Mahavamsa has maps drawn by the British. I mean, the recent publications of the Mahavamsa, right? So is it something that was written a long time ago, or is it an interpretation during the colonial period, right? Number 7, So let me look at how locals respond, right? So number 7, the conservatives would be more interested in, they wouldn't be interested in criticizing. They would be more interested in what can we get out of this, right? Money-wise, business-wise, or positions in the administration, or positions in the legislature, right? And they would actually try to study, like the British in the British way. And Milton Singer writes, the Sinhalese would actually try to out-English the English. They want to be more English than the English. And actually, these people were far ahead of the Indians. Indians were yet to go to England to study when the Sri Lankan elite were already going and sort of like becoming more white than the white people, right? There's nothing wrong with the white people. That's not what I'm saying here, right? It's about a structure. So when the low country elite became the elite of this country, so they gradually kind of like socialized into this. I'm just going to read a quote from a book. The political leadership was concerned less with independence for the country than with the opportunity for itself. Maybe it's still there in some ways, right? They sold Iraq and provided transportation to white settlers. Actually, as most of you are Sinhalese, you might be interested to know, Youth Congress movement in Jaffna was the first to proclaim the people's commitment to full freedom from foreign rule. People's commitment, not only for Tamil people, right? So independence became just like the brown people would walk into Kurunduatta and then, like go to the parliament and start ruling, rather than really changing. I mean, and adopting actually an administrative machine. The British did not have a state. British state was in Britain, right? The imperial state was in Britain. What British had was an administration to administer the colony and to reap the benefits, like to get the revenues, right? So those are the provinces and districts. Now, this elite would adopt this as our own. This is our country. We need, and so on. And number 8, the opposition, when they fight, right? We see, especially the socialists fought against. But before that, the Buddhists fought, and then there was a Buddhist revival and so on. And people have written, when you fight against somebody, you can become like that person. Have to be very careful. Because if somebody hits me, if I hit back, then actually I've become like him. I'm not against hitting. I'm against him hitting me, right? So when the Buddhists kind of like actually, the story is big, just to mention schools, Anand and Aland and so on, those are pretty much like missionary schools, right? It's our schools now, but like missionary schools, they played cricket, they learned English, but they learned Buddhism in the schools, right? So very much like Buddhism was Protestantized in many ways. Gombrich and Obesekar have written about this. Number 9, I'm pretty close to finishing. I think we need to pay a lot of attention to the ordinary. One of the problems with the universities is they make people illiterate. It becomes extremely difficult to read what ordinary people are doing. Now, I talked about the binary, like one side and the other side fighting and thinking about the world in dualities. But people don't think like this. There was a debate about whether we should have organic fertilizer or chemical fertilizer. Farmers don't think like this. Farmers use both, and maybe 3rd and 4th and 5th something, right? So I think if we really want to get out of this colonial thinking, one of the things that we can do is to, go to places and sort of like see how people do things. Ordinary people. We have to do it intellectually, because intelligently, because otherwise we will see two sides, right? I mean, even today, Ranil says, like he and the opposition are the only sides. And then Anura Kumara says he and the other side are the only sides. So they continuously tries to say that only 2 sides are valid. And Tamils and the Sinhalese are the 2 sides, and so on. So once you reduce it, you lose it, right? So it's very interesting to see colonialism was incomplete. It really didn't hit the villages very hard. So there are many practices, hybrid practices, that actually continued in these places, and as well as among the poor people, and that's where actually the knowledge resides, I think. So ordinary people had more room to push for innovations. They didn't have to follow the British model or something like that, right? And the binary oppositions. Now, for example, if, after tsunami, I also worked, you give a house to a person, right? Because we think we are middle class people, we can do that, right? This is actually BS and violent to do that. But anyway, so we do that. And for them, it's not a final product. It's a raw material. They would break everything and make everything and so on. They would change it according to their needs. Because what is important for them is not the way we think. What is important for them is their life journey. Now, how am I going to make use of this for my life journey? Right? If you can understand that, maybe we can understand something more. So, so number 10, I have 11 here. Similarly, the ideas are driven by people and not the other way around. I mean, I think the speaker before so kind of like said that, technology doesn't drive us. We drive technology at the end of the day. Poor people are much better. Like when the cell phones came, they started sharing cell phones, pushing the cell phone companies to make cell phones with 2 SIMs and so on, right? So it doesn't matter what kind of technology, people have a lot of power and they use. Ideas that come from outside gets transformed when it hits the cultural boundaries. So culture is extremely important, which is totally absent from a lot of studies, right? Because it is the way people respond to climate, to technology, to all of these things, that is culture. That is how culture is produced, and the responses are cultural. Let me quickly cut short here. And also, people don't live in a culture because we are told like it's our culture and so on. People always change the culture to live it because we want to live in that culture. We want culture. We want to live in that. So there's nothing called static culture. So people change. I think we need to pay a lot of attention to this cultural process. In other words, Sri Lanka can only become Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka cannot become Europe. Sri Lanka cannot become Singapore. Sri Lanka cannot become anything else until we change our minds to say that we have strengths, we can do certain things, and until we are able to look into that, we are not going anywhere. I think. I think these crises and so on, they are not externally imposed. I mean, it's pretty much internal. Therefore, the last point, engaging the transformation of our times, that's what I started with, requires us to know what today's Sri Lanka is. What today's Sri Lanka is. It's not what today's United States is, what today's Europe is, what today's Singapore is. What today's Sri Lanka is, right? Especially its local people, their life journeys, because that's what we all do. We are all trying to live, what they practice, and what is camouflaged through these imported ideologies. What gets hidden? I'll tell you one little thing. There's this celebrated architect, called Balakrishna Doshi in India. When I was doing a critique, like in India, in Ahmedabad, he said something. I asked him, what is that? Then he said, that's Indian. I said, what is Indian? Can you explain to me what you said and what is Indian about it? He couldn't. I mean, this problem is there in most of the post-colonial world. They don't actually know who they are, right? I mean, they know that there's something different, but what is that different? I don't know. But if you ask how many lakes are there in North America, they know that. That's a very different type of education that we have. So there is no future for a society like Sri Lanka where Eurocentrism, the current system of understanding, or another system. For that, we need to do at least 2 things. First of all, we need to provincialize Europe. Europe has produced a lot of good knowledge. I mean, I flew here, the airplanes run because of science, and then cars, buses. I mean, there are lots of fantastic things. So we need to understand the importance of the European knowledge. Like when I was a kid, I used to play soccer or football, and I broke my arm, and then I went to Aginona, right? I didn't go to the hospital because hospital cannot actually fix this. Aginona can do it, but then some people ask, because people believe that there should be one understanding. Oh, if you have a heart attack, do you go to Aginona? No, I don't. Why do you think, like I'm so stupid, So we have to be able to kind of like understand there are different types of knowledge. So these are like provinces of a country. Rather than, relying on one type of knowledge, Eurocentrism, we need to figure out. We need to go to India. We need to go to China. We need to go to Burma to kind of like try to understand the world. It's not just a Western thing or a Singaporean thing. Number two, I think we should learn from ordinary people. We should be humble enough to understand just because we have a vocabulary, we know certain words that nobody understands, that doesn't make us big and important. Because I mean, I'll give you one example to kind of like close this off. Many of my students talk about how difficult it is, to go to a slum. Especially, I was doing some research in Dharavi. If you go there, they will try to kill you, and if they try to kill you, you don't even know how to run, because you don't even know this place. Actually, I've been to Dharavi. I've been to a lot of places like that across the world, including in Manila and all these different places. Nobody's running behind you with a knife. They are too busy. They're actually far more busier than middle-class people. They need to earn to live, right? And the places are organized. They know how to get home, and they have a spatial map. It is the people who have gone to the university who cannot read that, because we have been taught how to read places in a very different way. I think until we actually learn not how the British people, read roads, or how the Americans read roads, how the people in Vanathamul reads roads, right? Until we can get to that place, it'll be very difficult for us to, we can talk about development and improvement and so on, but we need to know we have to have a baseline. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nihal, for your presentation. We will certainly have a bit of time towards the end to discuss, some of the issues that you touched on during your presentation. And I feel that this is a theme that we can have for a very large conference with all the different social science and humanities disciplines being widely represented. But anyway, let me move on to the third presentation. We have Dr. Lesley Dick to make her presentation from the British Council, switching to unfamiliar modality of distance learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you? Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks to the organizers for inviting me. I must admit, when I first saw the invitation and I saw the topic of this conference, which is, I can't read it from here. What is it? Achieving resilience through digitalization, sustainability, and sectoral transformation. I went, oh. It's a very long title. It's a very long title. And I thought, I know nothing about that. Why are they asking me to talk about that? Okay. Then I had another look at it and I thought, oh, okay, wait a minute. Resilience. I have had a lot of experience of resilience, both personally and with people around about me. I have had a lot of experience very recently, as we all have, of digitalization and transforming as well. Okay. So I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. So here I am. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about, basically, my background is English language teaching, English language training, teacher educator training. That's my background in the British Council. I think I've been here for a long while, off and on. My topic is digital success. Positive outcomes of taking teacher training online in Sri Lanka. Now, that was a complete accident. And I think we all know why this happened. But I think this process demonstrates very clearly the resilience in this country. This was a very difficult process, I think. It was a huge challenge to take our normal teacher training online. And that's basically what I want to talk to you a little bit about. Okay. Okay. Oh, right. Okay. Thank you. Which way? Right. Okay. You can see that I am not a digital native at all. I'm still learning. I hate these things. I much prefer face-to-face. Ah, which one do you want me to press? That one, right. Thank you so much. I always need help. Okay, so this session is going to talk a little bit about taking what we normally do online, and because of the pandemic, basically, and to describe what we did to ensure the effectiveness of it, and to demonstrate not all, but some of the challenges and some of the opportunities along the way. And I hope I'm going to press the right button, am I? Yay! Okay. Okay. So I think 2019, my job basically involved teacher training, English language teacher training with the Ministry of Education here. We had done 2 research projects. One was testing school children, grade 11 pupils, and one was testing teachers. And it was testing their proficiency levels. One of the reasons for that was because the Ministry of Education and the National Institute of Education were moving towards agreeing that pupils coming out at the end of school had to have B1 level of proficiency. Okay, so and that's on the Common European Framework of Reference. B1 is about kind of intermediate level. So if pupils had to have B1 level of English, what did that mean for the actual pupils in school at the moment? And what did it mean for the teachers? So we did the research. And English Impact was teaching the students. And I think everybody was a bit shocked at the outcome of that. Basically, the pupils in grade 11 were scoring pretty much A1, A2, which is fairly elementary English. Okay, so it was much lower than people had expected. With the teachers, we tested using a different test, but tested the teachers and discovered that about 50% of the teachers had B1 or below. So only about 50% of the teachers could actually hope to sort of bump up the pupils' language to a B1 level because they weren't B1 themselves. Okay, so that was a bit illuminating. Okay, so before the pandemic hit, one of our, well, the course that we were in the process of training master trainers to deliver was called English for Teaching 2. So English for Teaching 2 aimed to raise teachers' English levels from B1 to B2 and also give them a lot of methodology input and improve their classroom practice. You can see the numbers on the board. That was the plan up till March 2020. We did start it. We completed the master training, but then of course March 2020, and we all know what happened then. Pandemic hit, everything went pear-shaped basically. Luckily, British Council had a global product, which was the same course, but it was online. However, myself and a couple of my colleagues, we had done a little bit of online teaching before, but really, really small amount. And we didn't have any master trainers trained to deliver teacher training. So we basically had to do train the master trainers and put them through an e-moderator course, and then get them on board to deliver the training to the teachers. We did a very, very small pilot. Part of the purpose of the pilot was to actually train the e-moderators more than the teachers and to give them experience. So we trained more e-moderators on that course than actual teachers. The results were very favorable. The results showed that teachers went from B1 to B2 on this course. And then after the pilot, we rolled it out much on a wider scale across all the provinces, and there's some numbers on the board there that give you what we did initially. We've now rolled this out 3 times, and we're hoping to do another rollout of this course starting next month. Okay. Lessons learned on this process, one was the necessity of checking both teacher commitment and equipment. Okay, we found that, you know, if teachers were not committed, if they weren't interested in online, they were just going to fade away and you would never know why, really. Okay, so it was very, very important to check that. So we started using a questionnaire to check that before we got them on course. Assessing forum posts. At the beginning, we didn't assess forum posts, and the participation was not high. So we made that an assessed part of the course. We also used Zoom sessions. This was an online course, so the teachers could do it at any point to suit themselves. But we introduced Zoom sessions, a weekly Zoom session with their local e-moderator, one of whom is here, Ganga. And the Zoom sessions were incredibly successful. I think the Zoom sessions kind of created a group atmosphere, created collaboration, all that kind of stuff. So they were very, very popular. And also, in order to do speaking and to build confidence in speaking, we did that through first WhatsApp. We had speaking sessions in WhatsApp and then in Zoom. So that worked pretty well. We also introduced standardization for marking assignments after the initial rollout, and that was worked well. And we also introduced a familiarization with the platform, which we hadn't at the beginning, and that was rather silly not to, really, in retrospect. But we now do that. Okay, so that was the first course. That was English for Teaching, which basically aimed to improve proficiency and also to improve classroom practice. The next course that we worked on just prior to the pandemic was improving teaching and assessing listening and speaking. English impact, the study of the pupils' results showed that speaking was the worst skill out of the 4 skills. The results for that skill was very, very low. So we wanted to target teachers and pupils and try and get, well, also the Ministry of Education, and try to introduce speaking and listening as assessed components. We managed that in end of term assessments, but obviously not O-level, A-level. And there's still, we're still kind of trying to push for O-level, A-level assessment of speaking and listening, because until you have that, teachers are not going to teach those skills to the same extent as they will others, because they're just not assessed. So it's very important. So we have the face-to-face course. We had this before the pandemic, and it went through various iterations. And we still have this. Some of the challenges just putting together the speaking and listening course was making it relevant to the Sri Lankan context, using models of best practice of exams. We needed audio visual. We had a lot of content to cover. We wanted to show best practice, and we also had to target a very low level of assessment literacy. Okay, so some of the ways we overcame that was using clips from a previous project where we had gone and filmed teachers in action in the classroom across the country, and we had developed materials around that. So we included that in the course. We used Cambridge Assessment as the model because British Council and Cambridge Assessment worked together, so we had access to all those exams. We provided teachers and trainers with USBs and links to whatever they needed, really. The course started as a long course. It started as a 6-day course, which was a bit impractical. So it was broken down into 2 3-day courses. And we also ensured that the task types in the course itself mirrored best practice. We also had the trainer's notes of the assessing, listening and speaking had enough content. This was a face-to-face course. When we went online with this, right, okay, before we went online, we actually delivered that. We trained master trainers to deliver it, and we did do some master trainer training and teacher training. However, again, March 2020 happened, and in the middle of courses, we had to stop and just sort of come back from the provinces and come back to Colombo and just stop the training. So we decided to, okay, this was our own course. We had developed it. Could we put it online? Again, none of us had the skills to develop materials for an online course. And at that time, the Ministry of Education had the Moodle platform. And so we kind of entered into a partnership with the Ministry of Education and used their Moodle platform. And we got a consultant from the UK who we'd previously worked with, who was an online expert, to train us how to develop this course and put it on the Moodle platform of the ministry. That took a long time. Believe me, it was that was a major challenge for everybody. But in the end, we did manage to do it, and that's kind of one of the pages on it. It's now an 18-hour course for developing listening and speaking and for assessing listening and speaking. It's run by trained e-moderators. Again, we had to train and quite a lot of e-moderators. We've now got about, I think, 35 e-moderators trained to deliver this. The teachers receive input through listening, reading and observing. They post in forums. Again, there's a weekly Zoom session and they work together on wikis. Here's some numbers. Rollout 1 was last year. Rollout 2 was the beginning of this year. Rollout 3, unfortunately, the Ministry of Education Moodle platform sort of died for a while. Last month. It's now up and running again, but the course data still hasn't been restored. but we're hoping to get back on board with those courses because we were in the middle of delivering, I think, about 15 courses. Okay, some of the challenges and opportunities in that course. Cost of data. Cost of data is an issue, especially in Sri Lanka at the moment, and it's going to be a problem for anything online. Motivation levels. Again, you know, if the platform as it's happened collapses, then motivation disappears. So you have to deal with that. Access to technology. Not everybody has access to technology or access to Wi-Fi or good signals. We've had teachers having to go up to the top of the hill in order to be able to get online, you know, and, you know, silly things like that, you know, but, you know, if you're motivated, you'll find a way of doing it. There's also time constraints, workload. Teachers are very busy. They have huge amounts of work to do. Some of the opportunities, access to high quality content. Just doing an online course will enhance your digital skills. So there's that additional skill enhancement. Also proficiency increase, because if you're involved in an English language course online, it will impact on your English language proficiency to some extent. Collaboration island-wide. What we found was teachers enjoyed the collaboration with other teachers in different provinces. They found that very motivating. They could share lots of ideas. Exposure to digital platforms. That was at the beginning a bit of a novelty. I think that novelty has now worn off, probably. A sense of achievement, just completing the course is a huge sense of achievement at the beginning. Peer learning, you learn from your peers. That's very important. And you can learn new skills and try them out. So there were lots and lots of challenges and opportunities on that course and on the other course. I'm going to leave you with positive outcomes. This is messages from 2 e-moderators. I'm not going to read that. I think you can read it. Going back to the title, the people involved in this, the teachers, the e-moderators, I think showed massive amounts of resilience just to get this achieved. I think it was a massive achievement at the time. And I think we're very likely to forget that very quickly, but it was a whole new learning experience for everybody involved. And it transformed us. Now we've gone back to face-to-face teaching and training, but now we know we can do a bit of both, and we know there are positive things about one mode and positive things about the other mode, and we need to kind of combine those somehow together so that we can get the best of both worlds. But it certainly was a transformational, maybe not a sectoral transformation, but certainly a transformational experience for everybody involved in that. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Lesley, for your presentation. And I think you have really dealt with an issue. No. Yeah, well, you have dealt with an issue that is very much being discussed in this country, particularly with respect to access to digital learning. I mean, we certainly faced major challenges during the COVID-19 period, and one way of dealing with that issue was to introduce online teaching, both in schools and also for the universities. But I think here the problem, of course, has always been a lack of, good quality teachers. It's not only with respect to English teaching, but also with respect to second language teaching, because in Sri Lanka we have failed quite, I would say miserably in teaching the second language, because the resources have not been very much available in many areas. for teaching the second language in Sinhala areas, Tamil, and in Tamil areas, Sinhala. So as a result, there had been a lot of discussions as to how we could really promote also second language teaching, not just English. But the focus is largely in this country on English language learning, and certainly there is a thriving private tuition industry focused on English language. As you move around, you can see that. But anyway, I don't want to go on and on your thing, but I think there'll be some discussion towards the end of the presentation. Then let me move on to the final presentation by Kamal Geeganage, and I already mentioned from where he comes, and we will have his presentation now, please. His theme is organizational challenges in the digital transformation and the role of social science and humanities to make it a better living for industry perspective. That's the title that has been given here. Go ahead with your presentation. And after your presentation, we'll have an open discussion. I'm quite sure all the papers will be taken up for, presentations will be taken up for Q&A.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll quickly jump into the discussion without further ado. It's always difficult to do the last speech, right? A lot of been covered, and I know that everybody's a bit tired as well. So we will keep more time for the discussion. So I'll quickly run through a couple of slides to give the context to my speech and then what I want to leave behind. I'm also trying to find which one will work. Right. Just want to start with global perspective in what are the companies who have done the digital transformation today. If you see the Amazon, it's a 1 trillion company. Started from nowhere. So 1 trillion billion company. This company was not there in our history, so they started recently, have gone through the process of transformation. Now they are creating value every single day. These are known companies. Netflix. I don't know, many of you know, many years ago, it is Blockbuster, the companies, right? When Netflix started this entertainment journey, Netflix wanted to sell that concept to Blockbuster. They went to the discussion. Blockbuster boardroom said, sorry, no, this will never work. Today, Blockbuster is not there. They're completely bankrupt. Netflix is the largest network, entertainment network in the world today. Airbnb does not have a single motel or hotel or a house. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So today they're the biggest network in the accommodation and facilities industry. It's a $92 billion company today, right? They just do the digital work, interaction with the customer and the host. It's super experience to both. Because of these Booking.com and Airbnb, all these hotel places also been very careful to look after their customers. Because they can immediately interact and then their post comments, you will not get any business tomorrow, right? So all the hotels been challenged today, how they run their business. Google, I don't need to talk about it, how they do their business. They're very, very successful. And these companies have taken you over. There is absolutely no privacy. So if you go through your screen in Google, you don't need to touch the advertisement. If you wait and stay in that advertisement of 30 seconds, AI will run from the back end, and every time you go to Google or a Facebook or anywhere, you will get the similar thing. Try it today. You go and say a bedsheet or a flower. So you will get 1,000 recommendations from tomorrow to your inbox, right? So that's how they have completely transformed the businesses. Domino's is another simple example, which a lot of people don't talk about it. Their concept is fresh and hot to deliver. Not very successful in Sri Lanka yet, but in the globe, their digital transformation, one of the case studies being taken in studies. So they can measure every pizza through the cameras and match through the AI to see whether it is meeting the quality of the customers. They can track the order always to the customers. They want to deliver within 15 days. So that's the way they're going through the digital transformation that they have done in the businesses. it's not right if I don't take any Sri Lankan example because we're also doing well, right? Pick me, it's a 13 billion company, right? Like this in Sri Lanka also multiple mushroom things are happening. A lot of people are getting to this because it is so much convenient for us, right? I just wanted to leave certain thoughts. This is something that you cannot get away, right? You can't. If you try, you will be gone, right? The biggest learning here that I want to leave here, it is not only happening around you. It is happening within you, right? We are very good at understanding the change happening in other part of the world. And we always say, no, it is happening there. No, it is happening within us. I was observing you and I was observing myself. In your mobile phone, how much time you can stay away from it, right? For me, it's maximum if I'm not engaged like this, I'm not, shy to say this, maybe maximum 5 minutes. My hand goes without even thinking. And see, I want to see the screen. If it is not there, I feel very shaken. The morning when we wake up, we don't take our hands to the spectacles. It goes to the phone, right? So don't think that it is happening around us. It is happening within. So we are part of this game, right? So you can't get away with it. It is so fast. So some of the challenges we see, I don't want to talk about the goods because everybody's been talking about the goods. Productivity increases, the cost is coming up, down, customer service, efficiencies in labor, knowledge transfer, a lot of good things are happening. One of the challenges that we see as industries is this. The digital transformation is so fast, but ecosystem is not getting fast enough to marry this, right? So it is happening so fast. Normal TV to a flat screen TV to LCD to LED to smart. Maybe normal TV where you had that big thing behind the TV to a flat screen would have taken about 30 years. Flat to LCD maybe over 5 years. LCD to LED is about 2 years. LED to smart TV is about 6 months. We don't know what will happen. Now people don't watch TV. Now we watch on YouTube and Google. So it is so fast, but our ecosystem in the country, especially in this part of the world, is not fast enough to tackle this. Because what we are used as a nation or subcontinent is that you get something and then you stable it, then you learn something else on top of it, right? That is how I think our DNA is being matched. Right? It's like, we take a medicine and then you take it, stay a while, and then you get another one. But now this phenomenon is completely different, where you cannot stay like. As a result of that, we see a lot of negatives also happening in the digital transformation systems in companies, in societies, in countries and culture, right? So I just want to touch on few things that are good to talk about, but have a lot of work to do. Right? I have put them into bads and ugly for a better understanding, right? The first one is that privacy is no more privacy anymore, right? The moment that you touch the cookies, they will track you from the day one, and then it will post you whatever you want to see. So you've got to be very, very careful when it comes to your privacy when in the digital world, right? We know certain things happening. You don't need to. There's a lot of scams, right? So somebody can get into these systems because they create something at the same time in a fast enough, they create something else to tackle that as well. So privacy has been a very, very high level of concern for industries. It's not only for the industry, the persons as well. And the second one is security. We know what happened into most of the companies because they've been broken. The security system is broken. Recently, there's one example within Sri Lanka. One of the export country system is attacked by ransomware. Completely through digital system. One person's smartphone being used, right? He has used the smartphone to approve certain things, right? Same code's been manipulated by someone else, got into the entire system. 48 hours blockage. Fortunately, they had a system to cover that. Otherwise, they would have to pay huge amount of money. So security is coming up big problem. And digital divide is something that again we see when we work with different generation, as professor said, right? X, Z, X, Z, and Y. Some people are so pretty much attached to it, some are not. So in organization, you have multiple generations. Some people feel that, okay, you've been left behind, right? Some feel that this is not enough. If you take a young generation today, they respond to WhatsApp more faster than to the email, right? And they understand the digital WhatsApp language much better than the one-to-one conversation that we have, right? This is what we experience today. When you get 10 management trainees, you speak to them, they like it, but the moment you send a WhatsApp, it clicks their mind. I don't know how it happens. This is what has happened in the young populations today. AI and AI digitalization will take a lot of jobs out, for sure. And fortunately, certain C-level jobs will be there. So we can survive for some time, but not I don't know how long. All the operational level jobs will be eliminated in the world. Sri Lanka is trying to push it back, say we don't need it, but that's a solution for our current crisis as well. You can't have corruption. Your system will be much more efficient, but we are trying to push it back. You know, we are still trying to get our fingerprints machine installed in certain government organizations. It's very difficult to have a digital discussion there, but you cannot push it back. It will come on you and take certain jobs out for sure. And misinformation, I want to talk about a little bit more, so I'll just quickly run it through. And literacy. So when we talk about digital literacy in Sri Lanka, we have today 26 million mobile phones. Our population is 22 million, a little bit higher. Smartphone is 13 million. So literacy level in terms of using some of these digital technology is high, but lot of lacking area is ethics and the values that people who use that. Literacy is not only about how to use it. It is about when to use it and what to use it. So the huge mismatch in these two areas. These are the uglies I see. The top one that I have taken is addiction, right? So digital addiction is becoming a problem in even in my organization and many private organizations as well as government organizations, not only in Sri Lanka. We'll talk a little bit more when we do the deep dive. And ethics, I've spoken about it. Monopolies of data. Certain companies have a lot of data, right? So it is getting clustered into 1 or 2, 3 big giants in the world where they will one day have all the access to all the data. You know what happens to Facebook in 2016? They've been taken to the court. Huge discussion because they have used data without authorization, right? So these are the ugliest things that we see. It's coming from the digital transformation. Human connection. I spoke about it. In generations, it's very difficult. I respect your point in terms of how do you bring the people aspect into the whole thing, but it's becoming very, very difficult, right? I saw a news item recently. It says, somebody says in that, not a news, in a discussion said that the mother is trying to tell the daughter to switch off the water motor. She was screaming from upstairs to downstairs. Nothing happened. But when mother sent a WhatsApp, motor got off in a minute, right? So this is the human touch that we are losing because of the digital transformation, right? I will do a very quick deep dive to 3 areas actually, from bad and uglies. First one is the jobs. So it's a research. We will be expecting 85 million jobs to go away in the world because we are moving into more digital systems, right? 43% of businesses will cut down, right? So it's a huge numbers. But what's the good news behind that? In the certain same report, when the 85 million jobs get away, 97 million jobs will pop up. But all jobs will be different and the new. That if you don't do reskilling and upskilling, you are nowhere to tackle, right? So this is, we see that in my company, in a couple of companies I work and even current companies, we are now into machines, right? We are now bringing robotics. We brought about 50 robotics in last 6 months because lack of labor in the country, we can't run operations. that could take care of about 450 jobs, right? But we are being an ethical company. We never wanted to take anybody out. We are going through the path of natural labor attrition. So that will be set off with the machines coming in. But that not only for us, that will happen to all the companies. And because we are going into automation, we can reduce the cost of operations as well, while you are paying higher salaries for the existing people. This is I think, is no news. 1.3 billion fake accounts in FB. If you post sensational information, may not be true, that will be published or republished 70% more than the truth. Right? People are after more sensationalized news. They want to be happy. Only way that they can make happy by creating false news. It could be on the companies or it could be on the people. This is a huge challenge for us, especially as food manufacturing companies. Somebody publishes a post saying that, okay, this is made out of this. Recently, we had a case. So we have we have overcome that. So I can talk about it. Recently, we had a case. Somebody came and said, this is not produced from eggs. 20,000 shares in 4 days. We had to go to the legal system and get it out because we use eggs. Right? In my previous company, the same. Lot of legitimate information is being taken now for the personal gain or just to be popular in the system. So misinformation and people talk without the facts. So this is going to be a challenge because there is no system in Sri Lanka or in many parts of the countries to tackle these things. The time that you take to respond to these things will take a lot of time. And this has happened not only for the companies as well as for individuals, right? Your face, somebody will put a face to you. Somebody will say something about you. And then anything that you do, they will cut across and then get a very small piece of that and then publish it. You can do it that every single day. The biggest thing that we see, I always say this, 77 billion in the planet, if I'm not mistaken, everybody is a journalist, right? You all are journalists, whether you don't know or not, right? You just need to take your phone, take a video, do whatever you think is right, and then put it to the social media or anything. So you are a journalist. So how organizations are going to tackle these problems? Right? Nobody has thought about it. I don't know actually. I have no answers. Right? So when somebody says something, for us, or organization, company, or an individual cannot respond the same way. Right? As a responsible citizen, we need to respond in a one way. But these things are becoming huge challenge in the transformation that we are trying to do, hoping the good will happen. Good is there, but that will continue to challenge the way of we do things. This addiction is 13 hours a US citizen spends on screen time today from your time. I'm sure if you take the private sector, and again, people who are at about 20 years plus to 40, in Sri Lanka, it will be the same. Right? Screen time is you just take the phone, you're doing work, but you just look at the phone, right? And the 40% of US workers check on email after hours. In Sri Lanka, in professional, I think it is even higher than that because there is no system to, nobody says no. In our culture, very difficult for people to say no. Sometimes I wake up in the night, something comes into my mind, I just put it to my leadership team because I think I will forget it tomorrow. 3 o'clock in the morning, I get a reply. There's no expectation to reply. But if somebody is asked, okay, he will reply. Sometimes he will say, okay, if I don't reply, I'm not on board. So I have stopped that practice. Whatever comes into my mind, I'll put it to my own WhatsApp and then I'll publish it in the morning because I know people will feel guilty about it. And the time that we lose, right, about 2 hours of work time, right? Sri Lanka did a research in construction industry, right? 30% productivity loss because of the mobile phone. Just do one mix, go and check the phone, right? One brick, go and check the phone. You will see, there are people coming to work your places in construction industry, masonry, carpentry and all that. So huge productivity loss that we are struggling today. This is the thing that we are trying to balance in the industry, as we want people to be digital savvy. At the same time, we want the same productivity and maintain certain standard in the organization, right? A difficult challenge. I have 2,000 people working in my organization. One side, we want them to be updated. Other side, I can't let them take the phone to the manufacturing side, right? Right? And he said, no phones allowed in manufacturing sites. But everybody has a smartphone. So a lot of questions coming from young population. Why are you doing this? We need to know where my kids are. There will be emergency coming in. I need to be connected. So these are really, really practical issues that we are struggling to overcome with the good things that we are trying to do, right? If you take the younger population in organization today, it's getting higher because of the migration happening in the country. Same challenge. They're looking for quality of life. They will work from 9 to 5. Within that hours, they need a lot of flexibility, freedom to operate. You need to let that happen as well, because otherwise we are not, one day we are going to create our value to those people, so we need to understand them and respect them. But organizations struggling, right? While a lot of good things are happening, we also are trying to understand this game. So what's the path forward? What do we need to do, right? We got to create this ecosystem in the country. Certain organizations have tried to create within the organization. Again, to the point that you made, yes, ecosystem is very important for us within an organization. But unfortunately, organization is only part of the country, right? What we are lacking in the countries is that we are not trying to create that ecosystem across the countries and the cultures. So only way that I see that organization can be successful only if that we are taking this as a larger topic. It is relevant to the topic that you want to talk about today. What's the role of social sciences? But all these efforts are happening in isolation, and we are trying to battle without less support from the wider perspectives coming from academics and knowledge sharing people and the technos as well, right? So only way that I see the path forward to get the maximum best out of these digital transformation, which has to happen, it is going to happen, that we work together. And that ecosystem is very important. How do we do that? I call it multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary approach, right? Technos want to get the maximum to the consumer. They want to give the maximum flexibility, freedom, fast reaction, custom orientation. But will that work all the time? It might not work all the time. So how do you bring the other side of the point also into the equation when you're deciding that? Within an organization, if I want to decide something that I want to do for our people, should I get only IT people? Not really. I need my HR people to come and tell what will happen. I want my research team to come and help me what will happen. At the same time, the academics, people who are doing research on these areas should be partnered in the whole game. Otherwise, going to make our life is very difficult. Digital literacy is very important, but I want to emphasize the facts of values and ethics, right? Is a lacking area. There is no effort in organizations. We do little bit, but there is no efforts in the school system where we're trying to bring this digital values and ethics into our kids' hand, because they also follow what they see in the older generation. So this is something that, again, that we need to explore and see what else that we can do in these areas. International cooperation and laws have to come in, right? Otherwise, it's very difficult to survive without those things. And those things also need to be updated all the time. Last one is cultural adaptation. Culture is not static. I fully endorse what Professor said. Unfortunately, we think culture is static. Everybody has to come to this culture and work as per this culture. That is one area that we are stuck as country, because we want to continue exactly the way that we've been doing things. It will not work. So this needs to be embraced into our culture and organization cultures to be evolved with the new generation coming in and the digital transformation coming in. But how do we do that? Not enough data in the system, not enough research in these areas to understand and give insights to professionals like us to take it forward. So that there's a huge gap, right? So the book and the practice, again, stealing your word, book and the practice, I think books also come first, right? Most of the time, whatever we do in industries being explored or tested by the academics. And a lot of textbook theories being applied. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know whether these are textbook theories or not. They're theories. So there's a huge opportunity for you to get into these areas and do real research, right? Even for the students, I'm not referring to the research that you do just to get away from, your education and then get away that will never work. I went to Perera University recently and looked at their research. Out of HR faculty, out of all the research has done, is about 35% is coming from labor turnover in a garment industry, right? When I was in university, same topic I did also, right? There's something wrong here in the system, right? 35% research been done, labor turnover in the garment industry. That's completely outdated. So these are the areas that we want researchers to focus and then partner with professionals and share those insights so we understand what we need to be doing in an organization. Otherwise, this journey is going to be difficult for Sri Lanka. Last slide. Only way that I see is you need to face it head on. And everyone needs to embrace it, the good side of it, and let us getting together to elevate the game. Right? How you're going to do it, what I said, we need the participation, we need the collaboration, we need to bring a lot of experience into the table. So one day we will bring digitalization into the country in the right manner, then we follow like other countries what we did in Sri Lanka, right? If you go to Kenya today, it's very difficult to find anybody using money. India today, even in Tamil Nadu, even the fish cleaner is using mobile pay, right? So that's world is moving in that direction. You cannot get away with. Only way I see is embrace it, take it head on, and then help together to build a much bigger ecosystem so we all achieve what we want to achieve. Yeah, I quickly ran through, open for discussions after we finish the presentation. Once again, thank you very much for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal, for that very interesting and informative presentation. And you dealt with something that was really necessary during the course of this conference. I mean, digitization figured very prominently in the theme of the conference. But I think the connection between digitization on the one hand and resilience and sustainability on the other, certainly had to be brought into the picture. And I think you did that very well, using very timely and well-known examples, illustrative examples. So I think you really set the stage for discussing digitization from the point of view of sustainability and resilience, not only at an individual level. I mean, at an individual level, it's very, very critical, as you rightly pointed out, but also at a societal level. We have a digital divide in this country, which is not easy to bridge. We have only about a third of the people online, and that is due to various factors. So you have that major problem also in front of us. But of course, here we are also not just talking about resilience and sustainability from the point of view of digitization, which is a fact, which is a part of our reality, but also from other areas that are as important. I mean, I don't think that I need to really illustrate this point. If you really look at what is happening in each one of the countries in terms of development, we certainly have to rethink a great deal. And similarly, the way we really live in this world today, in terms of consumption, again, I think we have a great deal to worry about. I think we need a transformation of social systems, economic systems, even cultural systems, and so on and so forth. So I think what we really look at is a very complex array of things, and I think we certainly cannot really bring all that together today, but I think we are opening up a very wide ranging set of issues for discussion, and I only hope that we will have opportunities in the future to take these things forward in terms of further analysis and discussion. And I want to thank all the 4 presenters for making very timely and instructive presentations. And I think this language issue, I think has been a problem in this country for a long time, and I don't think that we have really addressed it in an effective way even right now. So there's so much more to do for you and of course others and our teachers and so on and so forth. And then of course the other social scientists. I mean, the social scientists have to play a very major role. Here we are not just talking about, material conditions of life. We are talking about the way we look at the world, the way we, really, figure out, how to understand what we are seeing in terms of, culture, in terms of ideology, in terms of various other, factors. So I do not want to take your time. Actually, you should not invite me for these things because I take too much of your time. But anyway, thank you very much for the presentations. And I now open the floor for you to ask questions and then also make your comments and observations. I think that's very important. And I think we would probably prepare the ground today for a major discourse in this country on the lines that have been really opened up for us by the 4 speakers. Thank you very much. We'll take a few questions first, and then we can ask the panelists to respond depending on to whom the questions are directed, comments are directed. But let's see, we'll take a few questions and comments, please.
Thank you very much for all of the insightful thoughts from all the speakers. And summing up all what I got, to hear that is as the chairperson sum up the more chaos around in the aspect. But anyway, up to now, I mentioned about the whatever the art, global art architecture is now configure the elites who run the world after the World War II. So now we are under pressure that new events coming up. We all thought that they were the best elites and the concept of what they produced with the right, but now they are also now thinking about other opportunities. We are running out more technologies and we are talking about achievements in billions in life that Mr. Kamal highlighted. So despite all these achievements, even we are always worrying about and also thinking about kind of humans way of thinking. But there is what has been achieved. So what are values that we have been we have to think of how we are going to get rid of this as sectoral provision. So this is what we have to do. It is, I'm not highlighting one, my view, but you can go ahead. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think we'll take a couple of more questions, and then we can. If there are another person. Who wants to come in?
Hello.
Yeah, I think we can also have questions in other languages. I mean, it doesn't have to be always in English. I mean, we can translate. I think our colleague here, he says that it can even be translated. Online. Yeah, please, go ahead, please. So online.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. My question is to Lesley. Thanks, Lesley, for talking about the possibility of delivering online teaching provision. I have actually two questions. The first question is about the increased proficiency level of teachers. Was it across all skills or in one or two skills? That's the first question. My second question is about the aptis test for teachers. How far do you think is is it a true reflection of teachers' proficiency? Because some of the questions may be relevant to teaching the profession, and then they may use the existing knowledge to answer the question. So just wanted to know your opinion about this. Thank you.
Do we have any other? Yeah, please. That is what.
We are talking about digitalization, and we are this kind of transition during the review. And the big tool of organization in this language is colonization. And now we are using that as a tool for all our educational purposes. In countries like Sri Lanka, India, we are having more emphasis on English language education. So how do we sort of compromise this? What is the compromise that we can have? That was the kind of question we have.
We'll take another question, and then we will, ask the panelists to respond. Yeah, please.
As an employer, might want it to increase productivity, but on the other hand, as a person, we wanted to use it to maybe save time, use it for leisure, and for some other things we want to use it. So how do you strike that? How much of that time saving you want to
Okay, I think we have now enough questions to go with. So maybe we can ask any one of you to respond to questions that are relevant for you. And then, take a few minutes each, because I think we really have to manage time now as quickly as we can. So who wants to come first? There's no order. I think we can, basically, yeah, you can, yeah.
Thank you. Still digitally illiterate. Can't get this on. Okay, just to respond to Bimali, if I understood her questions right. So the first question was there increased proficiency levels of teachers across all the 4 skills? To be honest, I would have to go back and actually look at the results, but I don't remember them. I don't remember there being any real strong differences across the 4 skills. That's my memory. I can't be more precise than that, but I can certainly check the figures and get back to you on it. The aptitude tests for teachers, I'm not sure I understood the question. I think it was to do with, did the content interfere with the proficiency? Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. If anything, I would hope that it would have been the other way around. We didn't, we certainly didn't explore it, but we specifically decided to test the teachers with the aptitude test for teachers, not the aptitude general test, assuming that the aptitude test for teachers would be appropriate because it would have the vocabulary and the skills and the situations that teachers would find themselves in. So if anything, it should have helped them. However, that's my assumption. It's not tested by research, but it's an interesting point. It would be interesting to test the same teachers with the general and with the aptitude for teachers and see if there was any difference actually, but we didn't do that. So yeah.
Nihal, can you come now? Can you come? Can you respond? Yeah, please. Yeah, that's okay, no problem.
Okay. These are good questions. Thank you very much. And thanks for listening. I think there are 2 sides to your story. One is kind of like the impact of Eurocentrism. The impact usually, even after the Romans left Europe was Catholic. That was an impact, right? So this happens, but this time, the European expansion left an enormous mark because they totally created a new world and they taught the subjects to accept that, right? And of course, so that's, it's dangerous, yes, of course. And we don't even know what the next colonialisms are going to be, in that case. And language is a tool, that's true too. Now, to respond to what you asked, I think language is something very important that you should not lose, because it is not a language that you lose a culture and a worldview, right? So with, say the singular culture also has a medical system with it, also knows about animals, also, it's a worldview, right? So every language that is lost, even the language of the people who live in the forest, they have a particular way of understanding the world and the universe. I think every language that's lost is a huge problem. Now, I have a very good friend called Ganesh Devi. He's a university professor. He has done many volumes of Indian languages, documenting. Because, he's saying, and we can't let these languages get lost. But the thing is, they are being lost because of power and then so that comes an inevitability at a certain point. But I also have I have colleagues who go to Thailand and teach English during summer. So I ask them, like when you teach English, how do you teach English? Do you teach, say for example, the Chinese didn't say good morning, right? They would say Nihal. And Sri Lankan people didn't say that either. So it's even if they didn't learn the language, they have learned a culture without learning the language, right? So I was asking them, when you teach the Thai people English, do you consider the cultural issue? Is there a way to kind of like access their own culture in certain ways? Is it even possible? I don't know, right? Because there's a huge issue with these languages. Even when something is translated, I translated my book, and I fully understand it's tremendously difficult to translate, and sometimes it's really useless because say if the idea is developed in English, it's hard to translate to Sinhala because it's a different language, and say author is connected to authority in English, but author is cut through in Sinhala. Authority is adhikar. They are not connected, right? So it's a very different world in that way. So again, it's very, very important to conserve every language, I think, every language, but not as dead things, because it's important to kind of like have it in its cultural sense, right? So there are certain things that I don't know. I don't know a lot. So beyond that, I don't know. In regard to humanist transformation, it's a fabulous thing. I always think, the United States, I think it had enormous power after the Second World War. Nobody would even say a word to it. Everybody would follow. It revived Europe. It was in shambles and so on. But the thing is also, that is clear is when you have power, if you don't treat the subjects well, when they have power, they will also do the same thing to you, right? Across the world, people hate the American government, right? But they do, and I don't condone that. I don't think it's a good thing. But the thing is, they would be more interested in like treating very badly. Like if you're fallen, I will treat you badly. If you treat me badly, right? So, say for example, the Muslims in Sri Lanka, we say they're expanding in numbers. If they're expanding in numbers, rather than trying to kill them, you have to treat them nicely. Because if they become the majority, we want to make sure that they will treat us first, right? So if we start treating the minorities badly, it's going to be a different story. So I think it's your question is very important. The other thing is, if the world is transforming, say China, India, somebody becomes the hegemonic power, I think this is the time when you can actually infuse new ideas. You can't infuse new ideas when the system is already set. Like in the 1950s, United States was creating the United Nations, the World Bank, the IMF. It wouldn't listen to anybody because it's very powerful. Nobody would even suggest it, right? That's, even in the business world, that's not the time to start a business. When all the business are in the strongest place. When things are weak, there's enormous opportunity, because we think we like to think in a very bad way. No, it's not a bad time. This is actually a very good time to begin a new thing. We can ask, what is education? How education can be transformed? Do we really need university? We can ask all these questions today, which we couldn't ask in the 1950s. We couldn't have. So I think your question is a good one. I don't have answers, but I'm interested. I'm doing a lot of different things, asking questions about teaching and education and also the things that I could intervene. I think this is the time for everybody to intervene and create a human world. Yes, thank you.
Okay, we have come to a very tight corner with respect to time, so we have just a few more minutes that we can have for the other two panelists to come in, and then we will sort of wind it up before we go for refreshments. Please, Ravi.
Okay, I'll make a quick call about the question you asked. I think we can hybrid book and practice together for that again. And what I said was, actually it was one of my consultancy work for one of the private banks, the digitalization process for their consumer. Probably Kamal would talk about the internal customer. I would talk about how digitalization should connect with the embracing point of external customer. So this company came up with, I don't want to say the name, not BOC for sure, your sponsor. So they came up with the digital wallet and the mobile app. Actually, I'm using this. And first month, company, the generation gap, branch managers, including RMs, they refuse to promote this in the branches. Their own managers and RMs. Just imagine how employees absorbed it. Then I had to be the trainer for this company, this bank, like 3 months, to off the fear of technology and how that will increase the fabulous, very friendly work environment within the organization. That sort of human feeling I had to inject to them. I don't say I was very successful even, like 60-70% of the complaints reduced. Then the IT department introduced this mobile app with the support of one of the Indian companies. Unfortunately, customers cannot pay their credit card payment through their own mobile app because it can only insert 9 digits, I guess. This is how hardcore IT people develop digitalization without understand the ground sense of consumer. So that's what you call the business model and digitalization should work together. Unless it will help customers to get motivation to do transaction more and more and reduce the time they come to the branches, that will decrease the branch overhead cost. So your digitization cannot do this called sustainability. Digitalization includes all this stuff. Consumer, employee, then IT part comes, finally everyone work together for the integrated model. So digitalization should start with the ground, not in the machines. Customer, employee, everything. Over to you with the time being, internal customer, employee.
I think we cannot prolong this session any longer because we have even exceeded the time by 2-3 minutes. But on the other hand, even if you prolong this, I don't think that we are going to have the final word on anything because this is an ongoing discourse, and I think this discourse has to be broadened and deepened. And I think here we have had several, disciplines being brought into the picture, but unfortunately, there are so many other disciplines that did not figure in a significant way in this discourse. I mean, I am coming from the social sciences, and then of course you have our humanities colleagues, and as you all know, we started with philosophy, and we branched out into so many areas, political philosophy, education philosophy, and so on and so forth. And then we have, the whole social science, area being expanded and segmented and diversified and so on. We have a huge range when actually universities have been dominated by humanities and social sciences at the beginning. But as you know, today we have a debate about the relevance of humanities and social sciences. But we are talking about human societies, and human lives, quality of life, and so many things. The point is that we certainly have to have a multidisciplinary perspective. And even if you are confined to one particular area, you can see how, wide-ranging issues that you have to tackle. I'm a sociologist, with some training in anthropology, and I know the range of issues that I can really, think about. But then the point is that we cannot do justice, during a very short period of time, even if you have the experts in the audience and around the table to really touch on those things. But I think at the end of the day, we certainly have to do justice to the range of areas of study that we are, dealing with, also in the university school system, and then of course within the universities and also other institutions outside, focusing on very specific areas of study. So I only hope that we have set the stage at least for a, kind of a discussion that would take us, in different directions and so on and so forth. And then at the end of the day, we have to converge because we are all in one place today with the digitization, in a sense. And then of course, with all the global challenges that have come up and that really bother us on a day-to-day basis, really make us to think in terms of unity and also in terms of how we could really come together to face these challenges. And I think that's something that we might want to reflect on. And I want to thank the panelists for opening up. And I think they really highlighted some very important areas, and I really enjoyed listening to all four. And then of course the audience, and you have been, largely passive, not necessarily by design, it may be by default, but nevertheless, I hope that you will really take this very seriously because it really matters for all of us and also for the younger generations and older generations and so on and so forth. And in fact, for the whole humanity, because today, there are certain things that are looming in the horizon which are not so good. And therefore, maybe this is really time to come together and see how we could take this discourse forward. I thank you for your participation and certainly the organizers for inviting me to chair this session. And I want to thank all of you for your patience. And I congratulate the presenters for coming up with, very, very important dimensions. And I certainly hope that we would be able to really build on what you have already done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, as you would agree, we were certainly empowered by the fruitful intellectual discussion that unfolded today. The scholarly discourse by our speakers, Professor Nihal Perera, Mr. Kamal Geeganage, Professor Ravi Dissanayake, and Dr. Lesley Dick. Indeed, I would like to pledge my sincere appreciation to the chairperson, distinguished panel of speakers on behalf of all participants for the invaluable knowledge that they have bestowed upon us.
Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of the plenary session, Research in Management, Social Sciences and Humanities Towards Resilience and Sustainability in a Digitalized Era, was meaningfully portrayed by the intellectual deliberations today. Now, I would like to call upon the chair of the plenary session, Professor Siri Hettige, to present the tokens of appreciation. The first token of appreciation will be received by the first speaker, Professor Ravi Dissanayake. Second speaker, Professor Nihal Perera. Third speaker, Dr. Lesley Dick. And the fourth speaker, Mr. Kamal Geeganage. Sir, please remain on stage to receive the token of appreciation. Now, I would like to call upon Mr. Kitsiri Amaratunga, the Dean, Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities, to present the token of appreciation to the chair of the plenary session, Professor Siri Hettige. Thank you very much, sir.
We have a special announcement for you. Professor Nihal Perera, one of our plenary presenters today, will conduct a post-conference workshop organized by the FMSH from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on 12 September 2023 at the 6-2 theatre classroom of this faculty building. Further, after this session, poster presentation is conducting in the lobby of this floor and we invite all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude the plenary session for the 16th International Research Conference. Thank you. Have a pleasant day.